What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review for you, or rather an EP review. Kind of a bonus one just because I saw people commenting about this one in the comments of the other reviews, and it was on my list, but I wasn't sure we were going to have time for it, but I'm just going to take this one on solo. So we are going to go over the latest offering from Deadhead, Shadow Soul. This also came out on the 29th of March on Hammerheart Records. This band formed in 1989 in the Netherlands. This is only their third EP overall. They have 7 full lengths. Now, I didn't get into this band until their album Slave Driver, which came out in 2022, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that I have not listened to by this band, but I really love that album. It's just tight, vicious, gnarly death thrash, and I love that blend. Like, death thrash is just generally so much fun to listen to, and this band does it exceedingly well. So I was pretty hyped to check out this EP, and I mean, it is straightforward death thrash, very much in the vein of bands like Legion of the Damned. I would say early Sepultura, Slayer is definitely in the mix, especially in the second half of this. And even to a degree, a little bit of Pestilence as well. Now, as I alluded to, this definitely has like kind of a tale of two halves, which is kind of interesting for an EP, but this EP is, well, kind of different. Like, it's 8 tracks, which generally you don't get that many tracks on an EP. And it's close to about a half an hour, which is kind of around the same length as an EP, but it's kind of interesting that it is broken up in 2 halves, at least musically, at least as far as I heard here. The first 3 tracks definitely have more of a balance of just flat out thrash metal and death metal, kind of, you know, feeding off of one another. The opening track, Litany for the Weak, is definitely the thrashier of this batch. Comes in groovy, kind of stomps in, and then just takes off into machine gun riffs, and it's just pretty much off to the races from there. It's just a fast, gnarly song with some excellent riffing on there, and I mean, that's definitely the thing I sign up for when it comes down to death thrash. But across the board on this entire thing, the one thing that I absolutely loved from start to finish were the vocals. I love this guy's very theatrical delivery. Like, he's got a little bit of that German thrash metal sort of, yeah, like it's just kind of over the top, like a little bit of Angel Ripper or Millie Petrosa, but there's also like lower sections where he kind of gets more ghastly, and I just love his delivery. It's kind of theatrical in a way, and it kind of gives these songs extra punch, like when you get a good sinister riff behind it, or like a big Slayer-ish moment, which definitely pop up in the second half. It adds that little bit of just sort of like fun, aggressive evil. But Serpents of Flame and Caverns of Fate, which both sound like separate Conan the Barbarian novels, those are a little bit different in the fact that they are probably the grooviest numbers on there. Serpents of Flame in particular, I really enjoy. It has a good mid-tempo start, and it kind of builds into the faster sections, but the faster section doesn't necessarily come across as thrash that time. Like, the riffs actually scream, well, consuming impulse, honestly. There's an awesome galloping chug in it. I love the energy in that song. It's a good build to it. And Caverns of Fate is notably the most groovy song on the entire EP. It slows it down to like kind of a more mid-tempo groove. It's a little bit more brooding, a little bit more sinister. But the whole second half of this kind of shifts like right into thrash after this. There's a brief instrumental called Defiance, which is just a thrashy number with like some samples going on in the background, and it leads right into Age of the Haze, which this is where the thrash side really comes out on the EP. It honestly kind of sounds like Altar of Sacrifice by Slayer. Like, there's just something about it in terms of like the riffs and the pace of it. It just has those high-octane machine gun riffs that drive it. It's fast, it's bombastic. The solos are predominantly dive bombs and squeals, which lead work is kind of done minimally on here. They're generally very short, very shreddy, very squawky, and they just kind of keep that thrash energy alive. But here in particular, man, does it have a ferocious Slayer vibe. Opulent Disruption is kind of more the same, where it is just thrashy and fast. There's a really good triplet chug breakdown on there, which is just exceptionally punchy, and it brings in a little bit more death metal flavor to that side of the EP, as does The Run. The Run is kind of interesting, where it kind of lures you in with a mid-tempo sort of like just riffy banger, and then halfway through it explodes into just a full-on thrashy assault. The more brooding first half of The Run kind of reminds me of Caverns of Fate in terms of like how it's just, again, more sinister sounding and more dark. But this one inevitably explodes into a full-on thrash assault, which, of course, I'm totally down for. And in terms of that whole tale of two sides thing to this EP, it's also important to note that the first 3 tracks are definitely longer than the remaining tracks on the album. Those are close to the 4 and 5 minute range. In fact, I think Caverns of Fate is actually over 5 minutes long. And And they definitely take a little bit more time to build. There's, a little bit more intricacy to the songwriting, whereas the back half is just, detonation after detonation and more about like just the unbridled energy overall. And I think that's where this band is at their strongest, when they just kind of go for it and just explode into just vicious riff after vicious riff and keep the energy up. They absolutely kill it. But there are some points in this EP where I kind of feel like the energy waned a little bit, or, maybe they tried to do something a little bit, more intricate and it didn't necessarily work. The beginning of Caverns of Fate in particular, I just thought was kind of odd. The opening riff, I don't know, it never completely gels with me, and it's strange because it doesn't really repeat in the song. Like, it's just the opening of that song, and then it goes into what honestly sounds like the riff that really should have started off the song. Like, the verse riff, I think, is great. It's a simple, kind of open chord, chuggy riff. It's very aggressive. It just sounds absolutely appropriate. And the rest of the song is awesome. Like, I really like how that song in particular builds up. But the whole beginning part just feels a little tacked on because it doesn't seem to repeat at any point in that song. It could be that melody is just being played differently in the rest of the song, but how it's being played in the beginning just doesn't seem to fit. And this album does have 2 interludes or 2 transitional tracks, and having those in the EP generally bothers me, but honestly Defiance I think is really good, and it goes right into the age of hype. They sound as though they could just be one track, and I think that honestly works, and even on its own I think there's enough riffs to make Defiance stand out as a transitional track. But the last track, Dark Emptiness, is sort of an odd little melodic end to it. Like, you get some acoustic melodies and some clean guitars and some harmonies. It's very somber and reflective, and I don't know, it doesn't necessarily fit. It feels like an afterthought just to sort of close it out. It's less than 2 minutes long, but it honestly just doesn't fit the vibe of the album, which the vibe of the album itself is just very explosive, riffy, violent. This is kind of like a little melodic flourish at the end to kind of close it out calmly, when the rest of this is just raging and throwing chairs and destroying shit. And Dark Emptiness kind of sounds like a somber reflection of maybe all the chair throwing and, all the thrashy violence. But I don't know, it doesn't necessarily cap off the EP very strongly. Like, it's well done, but it just doesn't quite fit for me. But overall, I really dug this EP, and, this is going to make me want to go back and get more stuff by Deadhead. I probably said that when I went over Slave Driver in a collection update. I just haven't got around to getting more of their stuff, but yeah, I think I need to get some more Deadhead because this is pretty solid. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. This is primarily high-octane death thrash. The riffs are tight, they're vicious, the songs are explosive, you get great breakdowns and grooves, machine gun riffs everywhere. I forgot to mention the production here sounds really good. The guitars have a nice crisp tone to them. I love the vocals on it. They're just delightfully over the top and sinister as hell. This is just a straightforward, vicious attack, pretty much from start, not quite to finish, but at least with the track before the last track, it's definitely vicious all the way to that point. If you're a big fan of Possessed, Pestilence, again, Legion of the Damned, you could draw a lot of comparisons to that band, and I know they're fellow countrymen. And definitely some early Sepultura and Slayer in there too. If you like any of those bands, I'm reasonably sure you're going to find a lot of stuff you dig on here, so definitely check this one out. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel in the bottom right-hand corner of our banner up top. But if you are looking for Thralls Metal stuff, you have to go to thrallsmetal.com. We have new shirts there. We have old shirts that are discounted, provided we have your size. And we even have hats too, so if you want any of that stuff, click the link down below. And of course, thank you guys so much for liking, sharing, commenting, giving us thumbs up, all the stuff that helps this channel grow. You guys are just absolutely amazing, and I can't thank you enough, which is why I continue thanking you at the end of these videos. Tons of irons in the fire, so to speak. I got a collection update coming up, and I got another States of Metal. I'm going to do another piece to the heavy but is it metal thing that I did, because that was a lot of fun, and I got a whole other batch of bands that should be fun to go over. So yeah, plenty of stuff coming your way, and well, of course, one more big thank you because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.